This isn't about one bad performance. This isn't about Graham Potter. This isn't even about getting embarrassed 5-1 at home to Chelsea. This is about years and years of lies, years of broken promises, years of being taken for mugs by David Sullivan and this ownership, and enough is enough. West Ham fans deserve better, and I am going to lay it out all on the table for you. Now, first and foremost, the Upton Park betrayal. Let's start where it really hurts. Upton Park, where we were told we would have to leave the ball in for the good of the club, for progress, for the future, where we would compete with the big boys. We were promised world-class football in a world-class stadium. Instead, we lost our home, we lost our fortress, we swapped it for an intimidating ground steeped in history. We swapped that, steeped in history, for a ball that isn't fit for football. We don't even own it. The stands are miles from the pitch. The atmosphere has been neutered, and we've all got left our memories for once what was. That wasn't progress. That was a con job. What about the world-class stadium lie? They told us that the London Stadium was world-class, but anyone who's been knows it's not a football stadium. It's an athletics ground. Terrible sightlines, awful stewarding, the constant battles just to make it feel like home. Meanwhile, we look around the league. Spurs built a proper ground. Arsenal built a proper ground. Even Brighton did it right. We were told to believe in a dream, and what we got was a rented shell. And the stadium reality check. And look what's happening now under Potter. He's got a worse home record than any other West Ham manager in the Premier League. He hasn't won at the London Stadium since February. Think about that. At Upton Park, in the whole of the 21st century, we only conceded 5 goals or more at home once. That was a fortress. That was our home. And since moving to the London Stadium, it's happened 8 times in 9 years. 8 times we've been humiliated in our own backyard. Humiliated. And this season, we've already made history for the wrong reasons. 8 goals conceded in our opening 2 games of the top flight campaign. That's the most we've ever shipped. The stadium was meant to take us to the next level. Instead, it's turned us into a soft touch. A ground where teams come expecting to score 3, 4, even 5. A ground that's becoming a running joke in the Premier League. That's the reality of the London Stadium. Not world class, not progress. Another broken promise. What about the transfer deception? Let's not forget the other line. World-class players for a world-class stadium. But where are they? Every window we get fed the same script, linked with big names, marquee signings dangled in front of us. And then reality hits, panic buys, loan deals, free transfers, shopping lists, straight out of the bargain bin. It's not ambition, it's PR. It's designed to keep us fans quiet, to keep us hopeful, but it's never, ever delivered. What about David Sullivan as an interference in transfers? And just look at all the transfer windows. Fans are sick to death of the same old lines. We tried. We're trying. Every single summer, every single January, it's the same script, linked with players, rumours, flying around, and then the dust settles, nothing. And then just recently, when Graham Potter hinted at a busy few days ahead, what do we hear from the board? Sullivan himself admitting he's getting stuck in himself because he's fed up waiting. Now think about that, the owner of the club, the same man who promises step away from transfers, jumping back in because he can't keep his nose out. What does that say to your recruitment team? To the head of recruitment, 𝗘𝗡𝗢𝗨𝗚, it throws them under the bus, it undermines them completely. We as fans know who are West Ham signings, who are owner signings, and who are Graham Potter signings and 𝗘𝗡𝗢𝗨𝗚 signings. So we're left with this circus. The manager, not with really a clear plan. The recruitment team has another, and then Sullivan barges in with his own plan. No structure, no strategy, just interference. And once again, we're told judges at the end of the window. Well, we've been judging you at the end of windows for 14 years and it's always been the same story, or for however many years you've been at the club. And don't let them fool you with the numbers either. Since June of 2020, West Ham have spent over £600 million, 11th in the Premier League for net spend. Over £300 million gone, and what do we have to show for it? We've permanently signed over 30 odd senior players in that time. Out of those, maybe 7 at a push have been anything close to successful. The rest, possibly dead money, quite a lot of wasted wages, panic buys, you can't deny that, loads of panic buys. A record with strikers alone under Sullivan should be enough to spark outright mutiny. How many forwards have we turned through since he bought the club in 2010? Haller, Zaza, Kaleri, Hugo, the list goes on, and now we're sniffing around Callum Wilson, albeit okay, but still it's not one for the future. Another classic Sullivan move, another short-term gamble instead of building properly. Some will say this mess is just the cost of ambition. That we sacked Moyes because we wanted more, because we reached too high, but that's nonsense. This isn't about ambition. It's about incompetence. Any competent owner, any serious recruitment structure could have built something lasting from a European trophy, from 3 top 10 finishes in 4 years, from 8th highest revenue in the league, from having the second biggest stadium in the division, from a loyal, engaged fan base that sells out week after week. Instead, they've run the club badly, invested badly, bought badly, sold badly. This isn't bad luck. This is just simply bad ownership. And remember, that line, I'm sure they kind of spun to West Ham fans. They'd invest when the time was right. Well, tell me, when was the time more right than when we finished 6th, when we finished 7th, when we lifted the European trophy under David Moyes? That was the moment to push on, to kick the club forward, but instead they sat back, went cheap, missed the chance. Every time we're on the verge of progress, they drag us backwards. Then there's the managerial circus. Moyes sacked after doing a solid job, whether you liked him or not. Solid job, dragged back into desperation. Pellegrini handed money, wasted it. Left us in a mess. Lopetegui, another gamble that reeks of panic rather than vision. There's no strategy, there's no plan, no long-term thinking. It's lurching from one bad decision to the next. And who pays for that chaos? Us, the West Ham fans, the loyal West Ham fans. They've promised us training ground upgrades, stadium improvements, better recruitment, a proper football structure. And what's happened? Delay after delay, watered down projects, and the promise of just disappears into thin air. And it's always the next carrot, the next thing to look forward to, smoke and mirrors to buy themselves more time. The media circus, I mean, through it all, the spin leaks into the press, stories coming out through Sullivan and through his sons on social media over the past, headlines to control the narrative. It's cheap, it's embarrassing, and it drags our name through the mud. And then, as if that wasn't enough, we've got Karen Brady. She goes on TalkSport. And what do we get? Spin. PR, more insults to our intelligence. She claimed at the time Lucas Paqueta wasn't for sale. Really? Under this ownership? If the right bid comes in, every player is for sale. Don't dress it up. Don't try and make it sound like loyalty. We all know how it works. We all know that they wanted to sell Paqueta, and if he did step up and say he didn't want to go, that would have freaked them out. She even had a pop at Mo Kudus, saying that his poor last season last year was the reason we'd sell him. Kudus, when he played well, was one of the shining lights in this team. And she has to cheek to throw players under the bus, managers under the bus. It's just outrageous. But she didn't stop there. She made sweeping claims about the Premier League, the EFL, about money, and straight away, you know, the football finance expert who we all know, Kieran Maguire, called her out. He said Karen Brady claiming on TalkSport that there was distribution deal discussed with the EFL from the Premier League, and his understanding is that the deal was lower than the one offered 2 years ago and required EFL to oppose the independent regulator. She also claims that West Ham owners have not taken any money out of the club, yet ignored the millions of pounds of interest charged on loans from the owners. And that sums it up perfectly. They tell us one thing, but the reality is something else. Money has gone out of this club's millions of interest in payments. They profit while we're told to sit down, shut up, and be grateful. It's a spin. It's deceit. It's an insult to us West Ham fans. And if you think this anger is just ranting into a camera, think again. Because for the first time in many years, I feel like more of the West Ham fan base are coming together. Most of them are starting to unite. The Independent Supporters Committee, representing the West Ham Supporters Trust, Pride of Irons, Old School Hammers, Inclusive Irons, the Supporters Club Claret members, away season ticket holders, the Overseas Supporters Club, Hammers United bondholders, and even Juniors Supporters Club, all united in one voice. They're not just a few angry fans on Twitter. This is tens of thousands of West Ham supporters from every walk of life standing shoulder to shoulder, and what they've delivered is damning. They've sent a letter directly to the board, a letter that pulls no punches, a letter that makes it crystal clear that the trust is gone, the patience is gone, and the fans have had enough. And this is what the letter goes on to say. And it's a letter from the West Ham United Supporters Fan Advisory Board to the shareholding directors of West Ham United Football Club. It is with regret that we feel we need to write to you on behalf of the 25,000 or more dedicated West Ham supporters that we, the FAB members, directly represent. We now have no choice but to issue you a vote of no confidence in relation to the board's management of the club. Just 2 years after winning a European trophy and selling our best player, who'd been with us since he was 14, for 105 million, to hear claims of financial distress a year after our last account said there was no PSR issues as well on the horizon. See, an ageing, uncompetitive squad, inadequate scouting infrastructure and derided training facility is simply unacceptable in the supporters' eyes. Incontrovertible evidence is sustained failure on behalf of the executive management. You'll have seen the recent supporter-run survey completed by over 9,000 West Ham fans and run by a totally independent sources, including the FSA. It is a damning indictment of the club, in particular in the stadium, which far from being viewed as world-class. It's the most criticised ground in the country and home to a matchday experience regularly subject to negative chanting from away fans. You told us our move to the London Stadium would take us to the next level. The reality is the commercial revenues are now dwarfed by our supposed rivals. Supporters find themselves casting envious glances at the likes of Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, Crystal Palace, all of whom outperform West Ham both on and off the pitch. We need professional full-time executives with both football and commercial expertise and no further board interference, no more dependence on favoured agents, in short, to move into competitive professional leadership. This recently quoted description, analog club in a digital world, is very apt and has to change. You have no doubt heard our members are calling for multiple protests for forthcoming games, and we now have no choice but to support those calls and are engaging with relevant authorities to ensure lawful compliance. The FAB would far prefer to be working with the club in a progressive manner. However, we trust you understand current circumstances threaten our existence as a top-flight club. And we look forward to your response by return, and we'll make this letter public until noon, Monday the 1st of September 2025. Now, I understand this doesn't represent every single West Ham fan. Of course it doesn't. We're a big, diverse fan base and we'll never agree on everything. But you can't help but feel right now more than ever before supporters are starting to become united. From the terraces to the armchairs to the diehard fans who travel away week in and week out to the families who bring their kids to West Ham, to Stratford, the frustration is the same. The anger is the same. And when groups this broad, this different, all come together to deliver a vote of no confidence, this should terrify the board, because it's not a noise anymore. It's not just discontent, it's a movement that says loud and clear, enough is enough. This is bigger than one defeat, bigger than one manager, bigger than one bad window. It's about West Ham fans having years of lies, years of promises that never came true, years of being sold a vision that was never real. West Ham fans are some of the most loyal, passionate supporters in football. We stuck with this club through thick and thin, through relegations, through heartbreak. We deserve honesty, we deserve ambition, we deserve better. But as long as David Sullivan, Karen Brady are on this board running the show, we'll always be stuck in this cycle. It is nothing but the most frustrating thing you'll ever hear. And if you ever needed more proof of how deep this crisis runs, just look at what's happening now at Hammers United. One of the biggest, most vocal supporter groups affiliated with the Football Supporters Association have gone public. They've said no uncertain terms that West Ham is dying under David Sullivan, Karen Brady, their words, not mine, dying, and they're calling for change at the very top. For years, fans have walked away quietly. Long-term supporters, people who have lived and breathed West Ham, slowly drifting out of love, feeling discontented from our club because of this ownership is done. But now, things could change. Hammers United aren't just calling for protests, they're calling for a boycott. They've told supporters to stay away for the Brentford game in October, live on Sky Sports, and to make their voices heard at the home match against Crystal Palace in September. And the chairman of Hammers United, Paul Coburn, Bubbles, who we've had on the channel before, spoke out and said, with Brady and Sullivan at the helm of our club is going to die. It's a serious decline and dying a slow death as we speak, with thousands of long-term time-served fans walking away, another relegation fight beckoning, another early cup exit. We cannot allow this to happen on our watch. They sold off the bowling ground and moved it to Athletic Stadium, voted by many of the worst football grounds in the country, which we don't even own. We rent it. We are all for progress, but not at the expense of our identity. We all want a stadium we can be proud to call our home. We are promised a world-class stadium with our world-class team, then we were left our beloved bowling ground, and 10 years later, we have neither. That's not me saying it. That's the fans. Thousands of them. A petition to remove Sullivan Brady has already gathered thousands of signatures. Protests are being planned. The police are even being contacted to make sure they're lawful. This isn't a few angry voices anymore. It's organised, it's widespread, it's serious, and the board cannot ignore this anymore. The link to the petition will be in the description. You choose whether or not you want to sign it. It's your choice. You're a West Ham fan. But enough is enough.